Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're doing another how to edit like video series. Today we're editing like the Instagrammer Alen Palander, and now I will say at the end of this video there will probably be a preset pack available to buy on our website that we're going to create in the style of Alen. That will be on our website. There will also be a discount code next to the link down below, so make sure you go and grab that. It will be on discount for a very short period after this video has been released. Okay, so basically the style of Alen is, he basically has very desaturated images and he goes for those nice warm oranges. You can see here, and here he's got basically orange is his main colour, and then he's got those dark blacks, whites, and also those greys in his image. He also has lots of high clarity. You can see here there's lots of good examples where he uses high clarity, here being a really good one. Before we do, it would be great if you could go check out my Instagram. That's Sebastian_JWB. Great if you could go follow me over there and drop a like on one of my photos. That'd be awesome. Also go check out my brother. That's Matthew_GKB. This is his Instagram here. But without any further ado, let's get started on today's video. Okay, so this is a photo that I've downloaded off the internet. It's a raw photo. The best thing to do, I think, with this image is to slightly warm it up a bit. We're just going to drag this slider up until we get to somewhere around 7,000 Kelvin, 7,500 Kelvin. We don't want to go too high that it looks a bit ridiculous, but we want to just make sure it's warm enough that we are accentuating these oranges in the image. Okay, we're going to leave the tint alone and we're going to just come down and we're going to adjust this section here. Now, he likes to have those bright highlights and also dark shadows as well. And also that high clarity and contrast. So we're going to achieve that by firstly bringing up this to about +40 in the highlights, and then we're also going to drop down the shadows to probably around -10. Nothing too low, but we're just going to kind of increase a little bit of contrast there. Drag up the white slider and drop the blacks. You'll notice most of the color grades we do this sort of technique. They lift up the whites and drop the blacks. It just tends to add that little bit more interest into the photos. Okay, now clarity, we're just going to drag up probably to about 50%. So you can see that's already having a massive effect on this image. And if I press the backslash key, you can see the before photo and the after. So already we're beginning to look slightly in the style of him, where we've got those high contrast images. Okay, moving on, we are going to skip out the tone curve just for now, and we're going to move on to the Hsl slider. Actually, first of all, what we're going to do is come down here to the camera calibration, and in camera calibration, that's really where we're going to get the colour to mostly change. First of all, we're going to get the red primary and drag it all the way up to +100, and that introduces a very odd look into the image. So we're going to firstly desaturate that to about -30. We don't want the effect to be too over noticeable in this image. To counteract this weird yellowy green going on, we're going to come down to the blue primary and drag that all the way down to -100. Okay, so you're probably thinking at the moment we've now just created a typical teal and orange look for our photos. And yes, you're right, but the plan is to kind of continue editing this using the Hsl slider to then go for those nice orange and desaturated images from here. So the next thing we're going to do is drag down this shadows slider, and we're just going to drag it to about -60 around there. That'll probably do quite nicely. So if I turn that off and turn it on again, you can see the difference that has made with our overall image. Okay, so moving back up to the Hsl slider, open that and just select all. That just allows us to see the hue, the saturation and the luminance all in one panel. Okay, so get the red, we're going to drop the reds down, and what this does, you can see, is it makes the reds slightly more pink, and that's going to allow them to make them look slightly more sunset vibed than what they currently look at the moment. So we've dragged those down, and to counteract that, we're going to drag the orange up to about +15. We don't want to do anything too much because it could just look a little bit too extreme. The yellows, again, this is just playing around. Your image you may see you want something slightly different. At the moment, these aren't having much of an effect on the image, and we're going to leave the rest of these alone. Where this image is really going to come to life is when we start to desaturate all of the other colours that are no longer important in this colour grade. And obviously the main important colours we want to keep are the oranges and get rid of the blues and the purples. So what we're going to do, go ahead and drag down the purple and magenta all the way to 0 because we don't want to see any of those colours in our image. We're going to drag the blue down almost to -100, but not quite. We're going to go to about -70, -80, something like that. And you can see here we're getting that very nice grey look in the image that he has in his skies, like here for example, or here. Once we've done that, just moving up, just going to work our way through all of these, get the aqua slider, also drag that down, but not as much on this one. We want to keep some of the blues in the image, so -25 will probably do quite nicely. get the greens, minus, drag those all the way down, minus 65, 66 is probably just quite nice. You can see how this image is developing quite quickly when we start to desaturate the other colours. Okay, so this is where it really comes into play, is the saturation on the red, orange and yellow, because his main interest in the image is the orange colours. But you can see if you look here, these oranges are not the same as these oranges. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and desaturate them slightly and then also make them slightly brighter, I think, in just a minute. Maybe actually even darker, it depends, we'll have a look. Okay, so grab the yellow slider and just increase that to about plus 15. Grab the orange slider, decrease that to minus 30, and get the red slider and decrease that to about minus 20. Okay, so if I turn this off, turn it on again, you can see the dramatic difference that's made. And if you look at the oranges here, we are beginning to get that nice warm orange that we have in these photos here. It's beginning to look very, very similar to his color grade. Now the final thing we want to look at is the Luminance Slider. And for those of you who don't know, who haven't seen all of our other videos or any other Lightroom tutorials, Luminance basically allows you to increase the exposure of each color in that image. Okay, so we're going to get the red and the orange, and we're just going to increase those. The red to plus 65, and we're also going to increase the red to the orange to plus 55. This may begin to look slightly too bright, so we may actually drop down the orange ever so slightly, but not too much. We want to increase the brightness on both of them. Everything else leave at 0, but get the aquas, and we're just going to drop those to minus 100 just to increase a little bit of contrast. You can see the clouds a little bit more obviously there. Okay, so that basically, if we press before and after we're pressing the backslash key on the keyboard, you can see the difference that has made to the overall image. We can see here that is the main subject, these two towers here, and also we've got the nice sort of colour match going on. One thing we can do is try and get rid of this light bulb here. We will give it a go. I'm not sure if it's going to work on Lightroom. If it doesn't, we'll probably have to drop that into Photoshop if we wanted to later on. We're just going to drag that over the top and just select clone on here. If that doesn't fix it, actually just drag down feather as well, select heal and have another go. Okay, so that's kind of nice. You can see if I turn that off, if I turn that off, we can have the lamppost back. I kind of prefer it without. It takes away from the image ever so slightly. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is come over onto the brush tool, and with the brush tool you can really start to make those fine adjustments to any areas in that image that are of interest. So here we're going to focus on the tower. Come down and make sure your feather and flow are on about plus 100. Flow on plus 100, your feather doesn't necessarily have to be on plus 100. And all you're going to do, I recommend just increasing the exposure just so you can see where you're painting, is just paint over this orange building in the foreground. Right, so now we know where we've painted. Just scroll up and double click on the word exposure just to reset this brush down to 0. Okay, so what I want to try and do here is increase the orange tones on this front building. So I'm going to get the temperature slider, and I'm just going to increase that massively to about plus 65. You can see that's increased the orange a load. I'm then going to try and increase the tint as well to plus 45, plus 50, just to add some of those warmer pink tones so it looks a bit more sunset vibe. Okay, the next thing is contrast. He has lots of contrast in his image, as I spoke about earlier. So just grab that contrast slider and drag it up somewhere about plus 40, plus 35 will do quite nicely. Highlights, we're just going to drop those down about halfway, and then shadows, leave at 0, but the whites increase and the blacks drop. So again, whites about plus 15, blacks minus 10 should be quite nice. And then finally, we're just going to finish off by dragging out the clarity to plus 55, plus 50, somewhere around there. 55 would be quite nice. And then in fact I may even just drag down the saturation probably to about minus 4. Nothing too drastic, but ever so slightly. And we're basically almost there. The next thing you want to do is come onto here and select the gradient tool. And you'll notice when you look at some of his images, he kind of fades off the top here. We're just going to drag this down at the top. We're going to get the exposure slider and just keep dragging it down until we get something that we think is quite nice. Minus 0.22 should do quite nicely. I may even stretch this out a little bit more just so it blends in slightly better. Okay, finally you want to click on the brush tool, and I'm just going to make this building here a little bit more pop, make it stand out a little bit more. The way we can do that is just drag up the clarity slider to plus 60, and we're just going to literally draw over the front of this building. My computer's lagging a little bit here, but you can see that effect it is having on the building right now. Okay, so if I turn off the brush tool, we just get a brief glimpse on what it looked like before we used the brush and after. Definitely is an improvement to the image. You could increase the clarity all the way to plus 100 if you wanted to on that foreground image. Maybe decrease the saturation a little bit more, and also increase the temperature, maybe. Just keep on playing around until you get something that you quite like the look of. And there's no specific direct answer to what you want to go for. Basically, you just want to increase as much clarity in there as you can. I'm also going to put some contrast in there and maybe lift up the highlights as well, just to make that tower pop a little bit more. Okay, so that's it. I don't think I'm going to do anything more to this image. I think we're basically done there. So if I press the / key to show us the before, that's the before and that is the after. A very, very massive colour grade has been achieved here. You can go ahead and try this, follow this tutorial and just copy all the numbers. You may find you want to tweak it ever so slightly to get the look you like for your images. It won't work for all images, but I'm going to go ahead and create a preset pack now for all of these, and I'm going to put that all together, and you guys can purchase that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, from our website. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, go and check out our new project that we're doing. I'll also link that video at the top of the description. We're basically trying to donate some money towards charity, so if you could support us there, that would be great. But if not, I will see you in the next video. Live long and prosper.